Hello. Welcome back to Breezyville. We do blogs, we do any little fun stuff. I have podcasts on here as well. If you're new here, hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe, help a girl out. Today, we are going to be continuing on with a Breezy review as we are reviewing this series. I did not actually think I could do this, but I actually have found myself enjoying this. Now, I am on episode 5 of Little Flowers Everywhere. This episode is called Duo. And I am loving this show, honestly. I am not gonna lie. Um, but let's jump right into it because there's a lot of stuff that we have to unpack in this episode, honestly, and everything. But please subscribe, help a girl out. So, it's going to open up in Paris in 1976 when we see a young Alina and her boyfriend Jamie and Nicole. They go back to their apartment and they end up having sex. Now, this honestly shows a completely different side of Alina that we have seen. Because so far, we've seen like a very, has to follow the rules type kind of Alina, and everything. So, and I feel like we're seeing a whole new side of her with Jamie, honestly. And we also have been seeing her play by the rules. Like, that's where her whole life has been. Like, she's always had this planned out and everything. And Alina tries to tell him that they have a plan because he's trying to convince her to stay in Paris and everything else. And she's like, no, we have this planned out. We have to go back. And I feel like this is where Alina might end up regretting it a little bit later on. But we're going to jump back forward to the present for them, which is November 1997. And it's a morning recap with Alina and Bill. And this is where I kind of feel like Alina's in sweats. And honestly, like this whole time, we have not seen her in sweats. Like she's been mostly in, suits and stuff like that. I feel like this is a different look for her. It's kind of important, honestly, because we don't really see her like this much. And I feel like she's just living in this regret mode right now, too, at the same time. But Um, we find out also that BB has gotten supervised visitation with Maribel, and Izzy tells her parents that shows them the photo and stuff, and that she's been apprenticing under Mia. While Mia also takes a cheap shot at Elena, pointing out that Mia is in the New York Times and helping a baby and everything else. And I feel like this really got to Elena as well because she's like, like she thought she was really bonding, and then Izzy takes this cheap shot at her because the kids are basically divided on this whole issue, honestly. Izzy's the only one who's siding with BB on this, like, and everything. And Lexi is, like, siding on her mom's side, obviously. But Lexi and Pearl are in the bathroom at their high school while Lexi is taking the pregnancy test. And this comes back positive, and for Lexi, this is going to be like, oh my gosh, I completely just effed up right here. And you guys know what I'm talking like that moment's like because she tries so hard to be this perfect girl for everyone. And she tries to, like I said, be a miniature Alina. I mean, everything, and I think this is important. And they purposely show this throughout the show, honestly. But Izzy drops by Mia's and asks for an autograph, and she then gets upset when she finds out that Izzy went through her stuff and everything else, and Cakes basically tells her she needs to go. Now, Izzy did invade her privacy, and Mia did have a right to be mad. But Mia is also needs to understand that Izzy is the outcast in her family, and she's just trying to find someone to connect to that truly understands her and everything. Now Mia is on the phone with her friend Anita, and the dealer is trying to convince her that she is safe and that the pregnancy was so long ago that no one's looking for her. Which I'm also starting to get suspicious at this point. Like, what the actual hell is going on with this part now? Please excuse my language. I don't cuss very often. But anyway. Um, Meanwhile, back at the Richardson's house, well, let's hold on one second. I want to fast forward, back up a little bit. Wow, Pearl is having her basically a teenage attitude and stuff. Like, I feel disgiven in at this point because she's a teenager after all. We've all been a teenager. You know, when parents tell you not to do something and you do it anyway, and then you get in trouble for it later on. But yeah. But back at the Richardsons, Izzy is trying to get into the bathroom and Lexi is throwing up. She asks her, are you trying to be bulimic all of a sudden? But Lexi does not tell her that she's pregnant and stuff. And Lexi calls her name, tells her next time to use the boys' bathroom Now, in the car ride, Brandon and Lexi are talking, and it gets to a topic about babies and stuff like that. And Brandon shoots that idea down completely, telling her he didn't want to be a statistic and all of that. Meanwhile, Linda is at the park with the social worker waiting for BB, who then shows up and notices who drops her off. She then tries to go talk to her, but Mia drives off. While Alina is at her job, the Shaker Times, I think, with. Anyway, Alina is working to find out where the picture of Pauline Hawthorne's duo came from. Now, she is trying to get information when Linda shows up, and Linda asked, when did she find out? Basically, and everything else. And I feel like Alina should have just came clean with her to begin with, honestly. Now, in the next scene, Alina is packing for a trip to New York and is freaking out about how Linda blames her and everything else. And Bill is trying to talk some sense into her, and Lexi sees her mom walking by and follows her into the kitchen. She tries to tell her mom that she is pregnant, but she gets scared. And she then and tells her that it's nothing, and Alina goes to her car and heads to New York. Bill is clearly upset. And also, I also really want to point out that Mia is hiding a lot of questions at this very moment. So let's keep that in mind. So Elena is in New York, gets to New York, and I want to say it was a very quick drive to New York from Ohio. I really am very curious. Let's see. So we know Shaker is in Northeast Ohio. And to New York City, which this would be a 7-hour drive. So unless she took a plane or whatever, but I'm very curious on this one. But I'm just like timing frame. Like, did she really drive that, or did she take a plane? I want to say she took a plane, honestly, though. But anyway, Lex. Meanwhile, Alina is in New York, and she goes to check into her hotel, and she spots the picture on the wall. Meanwhile, Lexi is at the abortion clinic, and she goes to sign in. Meanwhile, Alina goes to an art school trying to look at the roster. She is bribing the receptionist with cupcakes and get a copy of it. She then comes across a Mia Wright and spots an address. Meanwhile, Mia shows up thinking she is being supportive, but she is then hurt and shocked to find out that Lexi used her name. I mean Pearl, not Mia. Sorry. But yeah. And which shows like Lexi is being more and more like Alina on this point. Like she's protecting her image. She's trying because she got scared that her mom that's her mom's friend right there who works there. So back in New York, Alina uses her journalistic skills to track down and get some information. Back in Shaker, Lexi is sitting in the room waiting for an abortion, and I feel like Lexi was never ready for sex at all. She only did this to keep peace with Brandon and everything else and to make him happy. Like that's what she's been taught to do her whole life. So do we feel bad for Lexi? I'm very curious on that one. But honestly, I think though if she really wanted to, she would have been on the pill already. That's the thing and everything. But meanwhile, Mia is doing her artwork while Alina is getting ready for her hotel, at her hotel. Lexi gets an abortion while the nurse is holding her hand. Pearl helps Lexi out to the car and Lexi apologizes, explaining that the woman was her mom's friend. And Pearl is obviously mad at her and Lexi convinces her not to take her home. Mia asks what happened and figures out that Lexi had an abortion. Now, meanwhile, Alina is in the time lobby. When you remember that boyfriend we saw from the beginning of the episode? Well, we see Jamie. And Alina, and she asks him for a favor and to do some digging. He convinces her to take him out to dinner and say thank you. And I feel like Jamie is getting some feelings that Alina tried to avoid and suppress. And Jamie just represents a life that Alina wished she would have followed and everything else. Because again, we have to remember Alina's used to a life of structure and rules and a routine. Like her life is planned out for her and everything. Now, Alina's at the restaurant catching up with Jamie, and he asks her how she is, and she starts talking about her family. He just points out that I asked how you are. And the server interrupts them and then gives them a minute. She explains that she is good and how she's staying at the rental because the rental is important because they were supposed to get married and go live in that rental. But that did not happen, obviously. And she asked how Jamie is, and Jamie tells her that he's doing good. And after she asks him, he also tells her that her friend had a brother named Warren who died when he was 17. They then turn and take a glass of champagne to celebrate this news, because I feel like Jamie also gets her on this part. I really do. Meanwhile, back in Shaker, Izzy is working on an apology note. Trip notices this and makes a comment about it, and she basically pisses him off some. So please excuse my language. But they are sitting in the back by Meanwhile, back at Pearl and Mia's, they are sitting by the heater while is asleep. Pearl shows Mia the report and tells her the rest basically where you gloat and all that. You know, like that mom moment. But Mia tells her it tells her that it breaks her heart that Pearl is nothing but a friend to her and that she doesn't see how Lexi keeps using her. And Pearl opens up to her about having sex with Trip. And Mia asked if she was safe, and they thought it would be Moody. Oh, and she thought it would be Moody over Trip. They didn't have this heart to heart about her first time, and Mia comforts her, and she did ask her about her mom's first time and everything. And I feel like this is also a bonding moment too, right there. And this is where we finally get some answers. And the phone interrupts them, and it's Trip who's calling to talk to Pearl. Now, back in New York, we see a different side of Alina. They are they are talking about getting high, recalling memories and stuff like that. While back in Shaker, Pearl and Trip are talking about swinging they have this thing. And I feel like this is going to be like any other rom-com scenario. Think about like the Belly Conrad, Jeremiah series, the Walter Boy series. I can't think of the boy's name right now. But love triangle thing. And I just hate how Moody is going to get hurt by all of this. Like, he's such a nice guy. He really is. And they didn't swing holding hands by the swing. Lexi, I have a scratch on my leg. Okay. That was random, but Lexi wake up and Mia makes her a tea. This is where Lexi really gets it handed to her. And everything. She asks her if she makes the right decision. Mia tells her that only you will know that decision. And Mia's trying to be nice, but Lexi asks her the truth. And she basically calls her an ungrateful brat by using her daughter to skip school, take care of her, even using Pearl's name. And I like how Lexi gets this reality check, honestly. Now, back in New York, Jamie and Alina are drinking and walking, and they still are continuing their little catch up. Jamie asks her why she went by the office. Alina tells him that maybe they can be friends, but he then tells her that it's time for her to go back to the hotel. Alina ends up reminiscing and asking Jamie all of this, and he basically gives her a reality check and walks off like, I'm not doing this with you anymore, basically, and calls her a narcissist and everything else. Now, Lena's in her hotel room and she gets to check her messages in the hotel. And she then leaves $1 and walks out of the hotel. And this is where we find Alina is going to Pennsylvania. Now, back in Shaker, Mia is having a nightmare. Well, she's on a sub. There's this guy following her. This guy's been following her this whole episode. I noticed. Like almost like in her nightmares and everything. And then she finds Izzy. Now, meanwhile, Mia wakes up and they start talking, asking if she's alright, and Pearl asked if she wanted her when she had her. Now, in Pennsylvania, Alina is woken up by an officer checking to make sure she is okay, and Izzy shows up giving Mia an apology gift, but she spots Lexi walk out. This makes Izzy upset, and rightfully so. Like, this is supposed to be her person that she feels like has her back, not the other way around. And Lexi's just being flat out ignoring her and everything else. Um, Meanwhile, um, Mia pulls out this whole box of like keepsakes and stuff, and after Richardson's, Bill walks into the kitchen finding a mess, and Elena not there. Now Lexi is sitting in the car, putting on her makeup, putting on that perfect girl act that we all know, pretending nothing happened and trying to go on with her life. And everything else. And Izzy in turn takes the apology gift she made for Mia and she burns it. Thinking that Mia betrayed her. She feels betrayed at this point. She feels hurt. She feels upset and everything. Now, there's a further development of a young girl, and it finds out, and we'll note that Pearl was never supposed to be their grandchild, which answers the question: what happened? Why did Mia take this? Like, what happened? Did she kidnap Pearl? What? Like, I'm very curious to know on this one. But hopefully, episode 6 gives us more answers. But join me next time as we review episode 6.